Hi, I'm Baz Chelia and here we are at Southhill Park for Spriggan Mist TV.
This needs a little bit of glittering up. That's much better. Hi, I'm Kat. This is Southhill Park and you're watching Spriggan Mist TV. So Southhill Park here in Bracknell, Berkshire. It's the most beautiful place. We're so lucky to have it on our doorstep. It's an arts centre, it's a theatre, and also it has a recording studio. This is where Al Heslop runs Creative Control Studios, which is where Spriggan Mist are recording their 5th album, The Portal.
In unity once more, may you two united.
The recording process is very different to how they play live. And as the recording studio is here, let's go and have a look and see how it's done.
Well, it was my job this time to put together the recording of The Portal for Spriggan Mist, and I was given the title of producer. This was really quite exciting for me because I'd never done anything like this before, and my main contribution to Spriggan Mist is as a musician, making the music and just allowing the band to play with that piece of music and get it to where they enjoy playing it and creating it and making it their own. But the recording process was very different. We had to be quite strict and quite rigid in how people performed. We had to have timings for people to come into the studio, and we had to have a knowledge of who was going to do what and when. So Colin started off, we put the drums down to some backing tracks that we'd produced over the previous months, and Aaron Chelia had helped us do those, and that worked really well.
Okay, that's me finished, day one. Over to Baz with his bass. Not a bad start, seeing I left quite a my equipment at home, but that's another story, and what's happened in the studio stays in the studio. Overall, I think it went quite well, and it'll be interesting to hear the finished result. Now over to the rest of the band.
So I was on day 2 of the recording, so Colin had been in and laid all his drum tracks in one day, so I had the guide tracks but with the real drums, which was kind of cool.
Muddled in dreams, the darkness brings.
And Colin managed to get all the drum tracks down in one day, which meant that day 2 was left for Baz to come in and put the bass lines down. Which was a harder job than he thought, because some of the bass lines actually are quite complex now.
One of the biggest challenges was I think the bass lines are a lot more complex. I mean, nothing's mind-shatteringly complex, but they're much more complex than I'd done before. There's a mixture of fretless and fretted lines, but there was parts that we kind of had worked out, but once Colin had laid his drums down, I was sort of doing it on the spot. There was one part in Zombie Nation, for instance, where I'm having to do, I won't say it's a bass solo because there's a lot going on, but I hadn't really worked it out, and I was kind of having to work it out on the spot, and that was quite a challenge.
Bubbles of chaos, thoughts flow right in, paranoia and terror.
Well, that's it, it's day 2, I'm all done. I've done all my bass work and bouzouki, and it was a hard day, a few challenges, but it went well. And now Neil it's Neil's turn to take over in there, and Maxine to lay their guitar rhythm tracks.
I was the third person into the studio during the recording sessions. So the drums had been laid down and Baz had done his bass the previous day. So I got 8 of the 12 songs done on that day, but at the end of the day my fingers were so sore.
He kind of had claw hands and had to go away and kind of recompose himself and come back in and actually produce some of the most amazing solos on the album.
Sights are everywhere, and the greying clouds just loom. The acid rain that
The really surprising thing about recording the Portal was just how tough it was. The recording engineer, Al Heslop, he set the bar really high. So if we weren't absolutely on the money, we had to redo it. It made for quite a few retakes and more than the occasional crisis of confidence. But it was worth it all in the end. Al got the absolute best out of all of us, and I think the results speak for themselves.
One of the things that I think was the most surprising thing about recording the Portal was that previously I'd laid down my bass tracks very quickly on all the other 4 albums. I think Myths and Legends I did it in just over 2 hours, 9 songs. This one took me 6. I think a lot of that was down to Al. The studio engineer was really particular. He wanted the absolute best take we could do, and which is really cool. I'm glad he did that, because I think he got the best out of all of us. But it did take a lot longer than any other recording I've done.
taking me into the ground. I claw my way out, but no one hears my shouts. Here pulling me down.
So, this is Al.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
So here we are.
We are.
Here
in
we
the
are,
studio.
and I've already
Yeah.
forgotten the questions I'm going to ask you, so I'm going to
Perfect.
put that behind your head.
Good start.
And that's a really good start.
Yep.
So, what is the process? Maybe you can help me, because I
Yeah,
have no idea.
of
What's the
course.
process of recording an album?
Recording a band. So usually we will, and we've done this for this project as well. We've recorded all the drums first, so we've got those down, and then we usually in this studio, because it's fairly sort of, it's not the world's biggest studio in the world, so we usually get the drums down first and then layer everything else. So we did Baz's bass and, on the second day, and we're currently on guitars. Neil has recorded most of his rhythm guitar. Max is laying some of her guitar down now, and then we sort of build the album from there. So we sort of do it in layers. Vocals usually go on last.
And is that what you can see on your screen then, the layers?
Yeah, exactly. I could quickly show you guys that if you're interested.
Okay.
So all these different tracks are different things. So we've got the drums are, I don't know how easy this would be to see, but so basically this is all the drum tracks.
Wow.
Then we've got backing tracks and bits and bobs. These are Baz's bass parts, and we are going to lay some guitars down in a minute. So these tracks are set up and ready to go.
Wow.
So yeah,
So they're here all week,
yes.
and apart from the time that the guys are here with you, how much extra time does it take for you on top of this to get
To get the
recording
final project.
yeah.
So it really depends on the project and the sort of complexity of it, but you're probably looking at about sort of half a day per song to mix it, something like
Wow.
that. But usually what happens with an album, if you mix the first song, then you generally, the others follow fairly quickly. So if you get the first one sounding as good as you can, then you can use some of the settings from the first song throughout the rest of the album. So it speeds up the process a little bit. So
Okay.
yeah.
So I've never been in a recording studio before.
Take a look.
Can you give me the briefest? Because I know that you're on a time scale here, and I don't
We're
want to
up
be getting
against
in
the
the
clock.
way.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
sure,
So
sure.
what have we got here then?
So, as you can see, this is the mixing desk. So we're in the control room at the minute.
Okay.
So this is where all of the sort of technical stuff takes place in terms of like setting all the levels, getting all the sounds coming through. Got all racks of equipment which allow us to get a really nice sort of sound from the microphones into the computer, into the Mac. And then the desk is basically used to adjust the levels when it comes to mixing, but also when recording you can finally adjust the mix for the people to play to and things like that. So, and we've got some outboard sort of reverb units to make things sound really ethereal and sort of like in a nice room and things like that. So this is the control room at the minute, and then the live room is through here.
Okay, we're not using that at the moment, are we?
We are actually. We've got a guitar amp set up in there, so we've got the guitar and the pedal board set up in here, and then a lead goes through the door into the amplifier, and the amplifier's mic'd up.
So that's where the
So-
recording is. So if Max
Exactly.
is playing in here, it's recorded in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey,
and
that's
then
clever.
the sound is all coming through here. So we
Here's
can,
me
we can
thinking
isolate
I
it.
have to be really quiet. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's that and there's this.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, here's a question. Whilst none of those Spriggan Mist people are around, how does recording with Spriggan Mist differ from other bands? Sorry, you can be frank, they're not here.
Ooh, it's a challenge. No, I'm kidding. With these guys, I record a lot of sort of rock bands, so it tends to be a little bit more straightforward in terms of drums, bass, guitar, vocals, and that's it.
Yep.
These guys have a lot more instruments, and they're using acoustic instruments, lots of acoustic guitars. Bouzouki we recorded the other day for Baz, and we are going to record lots of things like flutes and whistles and all those type of things associated with a folk band. So so it's a little bit bigger in terms of scope. I think we're doing some saxophone as well, aren't we?
Probably.
Yeah, have lots of sort of backing vocals and things.
So does that add more difficulties or just different layer?
It's really just sort of time, and also a little bit more challenging in the mix because you've got more things in the mix to deal with. So you have to maybe work a little bit harder in terms of making sure everything's really balanced and cutting through nicely. But the recording process from band to band is fairly similar. It's just you getting the best sort of sound you can within the time frame you have. So
Wow.
yeah.
So about you, how did you come
Yeah.
to doing this, and how long has this studio been running? I didn't know it was here.
I actually, so the studio's been here for probably 20 odd years. I took over in 2008,
Wow.
so I've almost been here 10 years now. Before recording, I went to college like everyone else, and I always really liked music, but I didn't necessarily think I'd fall into recording as a career. But I sort of started doing a lot of live sound and really enjoyed that, and then I had an opportunity to come and do some recording for the guy who ran the studio before me.
Okay.
So I did some bits and bobs, and then just really sort of fell in love with the whole process of recording, and just really enjoyed it. So when I got the opportunity to take this place over, I went for it, and yeah, I've been here ever since, really. So
It's really complex.
it's not too bad. It's once you learn one thing, you can, like a channel on a desk. If you learn one of them, you've learned all of them. So it's
I suppose, yeah.
yeah. So it's just logical, really.
Okay. I think we're going to run out of time soon, but
Yeah.
I've got one question
Yeah, of course.
before we stop. So, when you hear loads of tracks
Yeah.
and you're listening to the same things a lot, do you ever get an earworm? And if you do, have you had one this week with Spriggan Mist? Have you gone home with a Spriggan Mist earworm
I
yet?
must admit, I have. Baz's song, Good Ship Polyphemus, is an earworm. That's literally, I woke up in the middle of the night the other night and that was going through my head. I had to get up, make some coffee, put some metal on just to like take it. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, that's yeah, that one especially has been a bit of an earworm. But
good ship Polyphemus.
yeah, but I'm sure they all will. Like once
I'm pretty sure.
once the album's finished. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I think I ought to go
No
and
problem.
disappear now into the background because I think Max is
I think
ready
it's
to-
guitar time, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go
No worries.
hide. So, that is extraordinary. I've just been in for a look. And you know what? It's not what I imagined at all. Tiny, tiny little room creates major magic. So I've seen Neil doing some of his tracks, and now Maxine's in the chair. You know what? I'm going to go back in and have another nose. I want to see a lot more of this.
Then my turn, I put a lot of the guitar tracks down that I was doing and some of my solos. As you'll notice, there's quite a lot of guitar that's interwoven between Neil and myself this time, which has been really cool to be able to put together the different types of guitar playing and styles, and it's really worked extremely well.
The earthy magic with the beauty of woodland.
What was the most challenging? It's difficult to say. I think the most challenging for the whole album was bringing together some of the final tracks, which were really in their infancy when we were going into the recording studio, like Zombie Nation. That was one of the last ones we rehearsed, and it was still very raw. And I think by the time we got into the studio, we were just getting it together. And by the time we actually brought it together in the studio and had all worked out where we needed to be in the song, it was absolutely becoming together and becoming really rocky, and it really moved at the end of it. So I'm really pleased with how that one came out.
Where a fire burns and lights up the face of an age.
And then Anne-Marie was then fit to come in and put all her singing tracks on.
Actually, the recording was really good fun. I was incredibly nervous the first day going in. I don't know why, never been nervous singing before, but hey ho. And then Al was just so lovely and made me do it again and again and again and again till I was too knackered to be nervous. So I think that was probably a good thing.
Like rain on dry ground.
Oh God, bloody range from the very, very deepest notes I can sing to the highest squeaky note I can possibly hit. Doing it all in one day and doing it 100 times over, that was a real challenge, and I couldn't speak for a few days after that. Had no voice left at all. But yeah, this has really pushed my range. I think it's extended even further. Yeah. Ooh, I think the favourite part was trying not to laugh all the time at people being really stupid. I can't believe you just showed me your nipples.
Maxine, stop it!
Very nice though, Maxine.
That's typical science debate.
I don't know. My favourite bit, that's really difficult. I think it was probably doing the harmonies at the end, because we were all really relaxed by then, and that was like, oh, let's have some fun and let's do something creative that we weren't actually prepared for. So yeah, I loved doing that, sticking all the extra little bits on. That was great, loved it.
Clearer than crystal.
We all really worked so hard to get this album to the best of its ability and to the best of our ability and the best production that we were actually scared to do it, and that's made it one of the best achievements for all of us. So Amory came in, very nervous at the beginning, but Al, what a great guy to work with at the studio, and Aaron was there helping Al within the studio. Great time. We put all the tracks down, Amory's vocals went down. We then came along after Amory had put her vocals on, and we put the backing vocals on. And that gave me a little bit of time just at the end to put some more flutes, recorders, saxophones, and then Amory could put some keys on.
There was one point where we thought that Max had named her whistle Heidi. That didn't sound right, did it? But Heidi, got it? Another time, as you can imagine, there was a lot of practicing before the recording and a lot of playing as well. So the fingers of my left hand were absolutely raw. Now Baz, being a healer, he offered to help. So you can imagine the scene. Baz on bended knee next to me with my hand in his as he solemnly did his stuff. The look on Al Heslop's face was priceless. He didn't know where to put himself. It was a lot of fun.
I mean, we did have quite a lot of laughs in there. I mean, we were in that studio for 6 days, I think it was, in the end. The catchphrase was worth a tune. Every time we would play our instruments, Al would, he would just hear, just slightly out of tune. It might have been one string, just a smidging out of tune. He would go, oh, worth a tune? And he got to the stage where that phrase, or the other one was, should we do that again? You think you've just given your best performance, your best recording, and then you go, do you want to do that again? It's like, really? But it was fun, and it was the way it all came down, and hearing everybody put their piece on it. There was a few wow moments.
I actually really enjoyed watching everybody put their stuff down. As the producer this time, I loved watching everybody coming into the studio nervous, relaxing into it, getting the best out of them, and suggesting maybe small little changes or movements in what we were doing to make it even better, and watching those come to fruition.
My favourite part of making the Portal was when I got all my bits done and I had a chance to sit down and listen to what all the other band members had laid down. It reinforced what a truly talented bunch they all are, and made me feel that I was part of something really special. And it got a bit emotional as well. For the first time, I had a chance to really listen to the lyrics of White Swan, and I must admit, a tear did come to the eye.
And what we were left with was something that was just brilliant, and we've had such fun doing it. I think we've all surpassed our musical abilities this time, and I only just look forward to the next time that we can work together and put another album down. It's the first time I've taken a whole week off work and just dedicated that to music, and that for me was a real big experience that I would love to do again.
Floating, where shall I go today? My world is a place where I can go and play. Let worries go and drift into the skies. No one to judge my right from wrong. If I've come up short or took too long, adventure lies ahead through the clouds. I wanna go somewhere I don't have to care. Who's gonna take me there? The good ship Polyphemus, a place where steam's the way from a Victorian day, and the Spriggans play the good ship Polyphemus. I wanna go somewhere I don't have to care. Who's gonna take me there? The good ship Polyphemus, a place where steam's the way from a Victorian day, and the Spriggans play the good ship Polyphemus.
I've snuck into Spriggan Towers. I've got a copy. This is awesome. So 3 years after Myths and Legends, we have the 5th album, The Portal. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to get a copy of this. It is their finest work, I have to tell you. You know when they say, when the cat's away, the mice will play. When the mice are away, The cats will play. They don't know I'm here. I'm going to go back to listening to this now. All I can say to you is get yourselves a copy.
Careless, gonna leave it all, clear my head, escape from this real world mess. If I appear missing on the ground, it's 'cause I'm floating round and round. I've escaped a while, no need.
So once we recorded the album, then we had to look at how we're going to translate what we've recorded into a live show. Over the last few years, people have told us that Spriggan Mist don't just play a gig, we do put on a show.
We've had some great fun rehearsing, some really long rehearsals where we've all worked really hard late into the evening, after work, and it's all been worth it because we're all really excited to bring the Portal to you live.
And we have, you know, Kat and her jingles, Judge's jingles, and Sebastian and the Krampus at different times a year, just adding to that whole visual thing. And we very much wanted to make sure that the tour has some visual elements and the way that we play as well, translating what we've recorded into a live scenario.
So the next bit is just to see how people react to the songs live. Obviously we've had a little feedback on the album itself, but when we do it live, when they're hearing the songs full on, loud and proud, it's going to be a different thing. It's got a whole different feeling to it, which we've got but nobody else has seen yet. So yeah, that's the next bit for me. Looking forward to that a lot.
Turns your heart from oak to gold. We'll survive.